The message you were never supposed to hear. Have you ever had the strange feeling that someone is thinking about you at the exact moment you think about them? A sudden memory appears out of nowhere. A familiar name crosses your mind, or an emotion washes over you without any clear reason. Most people dismiss these moments as coincidence, but what if they are not? What if the human mind is constantly receiving signals that logic cannot fully explain? Carl Jung spent much of his life exploring the hidden world, beneath ordinary consciousness, a place where symbols, emotions, dreams, and unseen psychological connections quietly shape our reality. He believed that the unconscious mind often communicates long before our conscious mind understands what is happening. Today, imagine that someone deeply connected to your emotional life could send you 3 messages, not through a phone call, not through social media, but through the silent language of the psyche itself. These are not supernatural predictions or magical promises. They are psychological truths hidden inside your own unconscious, waiting to be recognized. The first message may comfort you. The second may completely change the way you see your relationship. And the third could reveal something you have been avoiding for far too long. Most people never hear these messages because they spend their entire lives distracted by noise, chasing explanations outside themselves while ignoring the quiet voice within. But if you stay until the end of this journey, you may recognize patterns that have been following you for years. Perhaps that recurring dream was never random. Perhaps that sudden feeling of distance was trying to warn you. Perhaps the silence between 2 people speaks louder than any conversation ever could. Before we begin, I want you to make one simple promise to yourself. Listen with an open mind. Don't ask whether every word is literally true. Instead, ask whether it reflects something you have secretly felt but never had the courage to admit, because sometimes the greatest revelations are not discovered, they are remembered. And now the first message is about to reveal itself. But what comes after it is something very few people are emotionally prepared to face: the silence that speaks. The first message is surprisingly simple, yet most people spend years trying to escape it. My silence does not always mean I have forgotten you. We live in a world that teaches us to measure love by constant communication. If someone texts quickly, we feel secure. If they disappear for a while, we immediately assume the worst. But the unconscious mind does not follow the rules of modern communication. Carl Jung believed that what remains hidden often carries more psychological weight than what is openly expressed. Sometimes silence is not the absence of feeling, it is the presence of an inner conflict too complicated to explain. Think about the moments when you cared deeply about someone but struggled to find the right words. The emotions were real, yet language felt too small to contain them. The same may be true for the person occupying your thoughts. Their silence may not be proof that they feel nothing. It may simply reveal that they are confronting fears, guilt, uncertainty, or parts of themselves they do not yet understand. This does not mean you should chase every silent person or wait forever for someone who refuses to communicate. Jung never encouraged emotional dependence. Instead, he encouraged understanding the hidden forces that influence human behavior. The people who affect us most are often fighting battles we cannot see. Their pride may silence them. Their fear of rejection may keep them frozen. Their unresolved wounds may convince them they are protecting both themselves and you by saying nothing at all. Yet here is the psychological paradox. The more desperately you demand answers from another person, the less able you become to hear the answers already rising within yourself. The unconscious notices patterns long before the conscious mind accepts them. That uneasy feeling in your chest, those recurring dreams, that strange sense that something remains unfinished, these are all signals asking you to stop searching outside for certainty and begin observing what the silence is revealing about your own emotional world. Perhaps the greatest message hidden inside someone's silence is not about them at all. Perhaps it is exposing your deepest fear of abandonment, your need for reassurance, or your desire to be chosen. And once you recognize that truth, everything begins to change. But if the first message invites you to look inward, the second message is far more unsettling, because it reveals the one truth most people are completely unprepared to hear. And once you understand it, you may never look at your relationship the same way again. The truth you were never ready to hear. The second message is the one that changes everything. Not because it predicts your future, but because it forces you to confront a truth your heart has been trying to avoid. The version of me you are holding onto may no longer exist. This is the message that shocks most people. We rarely fall in love with another person exactly as they are. We fall in love with the image our mind creates of them. Carl Jung understood that the human psyche constantly projects its hidden desires, fears, and unmet needs onto others. He called this projection a process through which we unconsciously assign qualities to someone that actually belong to our own inner world. That is why letting go can feel impossible. You are not only grieving a person, you are grieving the future you imagined with them, the conversations that never happened, the apologies you hoped to hear, and the life your imagination quietly built in their absence. Every time you replay old memories, your unconscious tries to preserve an emotional reality that may no longer exist. Meanwhile, life continues to reshape both of you. People evolve through pain, success, disappointment, and time. The person you miss today may not think, feel, or dream the way they once did, and neither do you. Yet your mind resists this truth because certainty feels safer than change. This is why so many remain emotionally trapped for years. They are not waiting for a real person to return. They are waiting for an old version of someone who disappeared long ago. Jung believed that psychological suffering often begins when we refuse to accept reality and instead cling to comforting illusions. But here is the part that truly surprises people. This message is not meant to destroy hope. It is meant to free you from fantasy. Because only when you release the illusion can you finally see what is real. If that person still belongs in your life, reality will reveal it without endless chasing or imagined scenarios. And if they do not, your freedom begins the moment you stop loving a memory more than the present. The unconscious always pushes us toward truth. Even when the ego desperately wants another story, ask yourself honestly, are you missing the person, or are you missing the feeling they once gave you? Are you longing for who they are today, or for who they used to be in your imagination? These questions are uncomfortable because they expose the gap between emotional attachment and psychological reality, and yet this is still not the deepest message. There is one final message waiting. Beneath everything, you have heard so far a message that has nothing to do with what your person feels, and everything to do with the person you are becoming. Once you hear it, you may realize that this entire journey was never really about them at all. The person you have been waiting for is you. The third and final message is the one your unconscious has been trying to whisper all along, yet your attention has remained fixed on someone else. The love, closure, and peace you keep expecting from me can only be completed within you. At first, this message feels disappointing, because the mind naturally wants a dramatic ending, a confession, an apology, a reunion, or a perfect explanation that makes every painful moment finally make sense. But Carl Jung repeatedly emphasized that the greatest transformations do not begin when another person changes. They begin when we become conscious of ourselves. The unconscious has a remarkable way of directing our attention toward people who awaken unresolved parts of our personality. Sometimes the person you cannot stop thinking about is not your destination, they are your mirror. They expose the insecurity you never healed, the fear of rejection you never acknowledged, the need for validation you quietly carried since childhood, or the belief that your worth depends on someone choosing you. That realization is not meant to create shame. It is meant to create freedom. Because the moment you recognize the lesson hidden beneath the attachment itself begins to lose its power. Suddenly, you stop asking, why didn't they love me the way I wanted? And begin asking, why did I believe someone else's approval was necessary for my peace? That single question changes everything. It shifts your focus from chasing answers outside yourself to discovering truths within yourself. This is what Jung described as the path toward individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. Instead of searching for someone else to complete you, ironically, the more complete you become, the healthier every relationship in your life becomes as well. You no longer love from desperation but from abundance. You no longer fear silence because your own mind has become a place of stability rather than anxiety. And whether your person returns or never speaks to you again, your emotional future is no longer controlled by their decisions. That is true psychological freedom. Perhaps this entire journey began because you thought someone had 3 secret messages for you. But in reality, those messages were reflections of your own inner world. Waiting for the moment you were ready to hear them, the silence invited you to look inward. The shocking truth challenged your illusions. And the final message reminded you that your greatest relationship will always be the one you build with yourself. When that relationship becomes strong, the people meant for your life will no longer complete. They will simply walk beside the person you have finally become. And maybe that is the greatest message Carl Jung would want us to understand. The answers we spend years seeking in others often begin the moment we have the courage to face ourselves. Why you can't stop thinking about them. If you are still thinking about this person long after the conversations ended, the relationship changed, or the distance grew between you, your mind is trying to tell you something important. Most people assume constant thoughts are proof of destiny, but Jung would invite you to ask a different question. What part of yourself becomes alive whenever this person enters your mind? The unconscious does not hold on to people without reason. It holds on to unfinished emotional experiences. Perhaps they represented safety when you felt lost. Perhaps they awakened confidence you had never known before. Or perhaps they left before a chapter inside you had the chance to reach its natural conclusion. This is why memories often return at unexpected moments while driving, before falling asleep, or during complete silence. The mind is not simply replaying the past. It is searching for understanding. Yet many people make the mistake of believing that every recurring thought is a sign they must reconnect. In reality, recurring thoughts are often invitations to reflect rather than react. There is a powerful difference between missing someone and being emotionally attached to what they symbolized. One creates wisdom, the other creates obsession. The unconscious rarely speaks through direct sentences. It speaks through repetition. The same memories, the same dreams, the same emotional patterns continue appearing until you understand what they are trying to teach. Imagine carrying a letter in your pocket for years without opening it. The weight never disappears because the message remains unread. Your emotions work in the same way. Every time you avoid the deeper lesson, the feeling returns with greater intensity. This is why some people remain trapped in relationships that ended years ago, while others heal much sooner. Time alone does not heal. Awareness does. Jung believed that consciousness is the only true antidote to psychological suffering. The moment you understand why someone occupies so much space in your mind, they begin to lose their unconscious control over your emotions. And then something unexpected happens. You stop needing answers from them, because you have finally discovered answers within yourself. But there is one hidden force even more powerful than memory, one invisible pattern that silently shapes almost every relationship, without people ever realizing it. Once you recognize this pattern, you will understand why the same emotional story keeps repeating itself with different faces, different names, and different endings. The message that changes everything. If you have stayed until this moment, you have probably realized that this journey was never really about receiving secret messages from another person. It was about uncovering the messages your own mind has been trying to send you all along. That is perhaps the most powerful psychological lesson inspired by Carl Jung. The outer world often reflects the inner world far more than we realize. Every relationship leaves a mark, but not every mark is meant to become a permanent wound. Some people enter your life to stay, while others arrive to reveal something about yourself that could not have been discovered any other way. The mistake most of us make is believing that happiness begins when the right person finally understands us. But lasting peace begins when we understand ourselves. The moment you stop chasing certainty from someone else, you reclaim a part of your own power. You stop interpreting every silence as rejection, every delay as abandonment, and every ending as proof that you were not enough. Instead, you begin to see every experience, even the painful ones, as part of your own psychological growth. That is what transformation truly looks like. It is quiet, it is gradual, and it often happens long before anyone else notices. One day you will think about the person who once occupied your every thought, and instead of pain you will feel gratitude, not because everything ended the way you hoped, but because the experience forced you to become stronger, wiser, and more aware of yourself. You will realize that the greatest gift they ever gave you was not their presence, it was the opportunity to discover the parts of yourself that had been waiting to awaken. And perhaps that is the real meaning behind the three messages. The first taught you that silence has meaning. The second shattered the illusion you were holding on to. The third reminded you that the love and peace you seek cannot be permanently found in another person until they first exist within you. When these lessons finally come together, something extraordinary happens. You stop living in the past. You stop fearing the future, and you begin living consciously in the present. That is the beginning of true freedom. So before you leave, ask yourself one final question. What if the person I have been waiting for has been the stronger, wiser version of myself all along? If that question stays with you after this video ends, then the real journey has only just begun. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Beyond the Mind, and share it with someone who may need these words today. Sometimes a single insight arrives at exactly the right moment and quietly changes a life forever.